Greetings to all, and welcome to the Jamaica Diaspora Show. My name is Mark Millward of the West Indian Social Club of Hartford, and I'm your host. The Jamaica Diaspora Show is aimed at providing viewers with coverage of diaspora news and activities in a variety of areas, including business, arts, health, education, entertainment, politics, immigration, trade, and investment. Our first show featured an exclusive interview with the Most Honorable Andrew P. Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, who talked about the Economic Growth Council and harnessing the power of the diaspora. Tune in for more coverage in the future on the activities of the Economic Growth Council and diaspora engagement. Hartford, Connecticut is the third largest population of Jamaicans in the United States, behind Miami and New York. We intend to provide our viewing audience with global diaspora perspectives and coverage from the US, UK, Canada, Jamaica, and of course the Caribbean. Please join us weekly, Saturdays at 2 p.m. and Sundays at 3 p.m. on Hartford Public Access Television, providing global television network coverage at www.hpa-tv.org.
Major General Anthony Anderson, Commissioner of Police of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and your keynote speaker, the Honorable Oliver Clark, Chairman of the Jamaica National Group, Mr. Earl Jarrett, Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica National Group, Mrs. Sheila Alexander, Mr. Derek Cox, and Mr. Alfred Sims, Directors of J&M Money Services Limited, Senior Superintendent Karina Hood, Staff Officer of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Bishop Cecil Riley of the Freedom Hall Church of God, Mr. Alan Lewis, Managing Director of JN Fund Managers Limited, Mr. Curtis Martin, Managing Director of JN Bank Limited, Mr. Horace Hines, General Manager of JN Money Services Limited, Ms. Janice McIntosh, Chief Representative Officer of the JN Bank in Florida, Messrs. Harry Brewer Singh and Martin Gooden, executives of JN Money Services, other members of the Jamaica National Team, our specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Consulate of Jamaica, New York, members of the media, I bid you a good evening. May I now invite you to stand for the playing of the national anthems of the USA and Jamaica. My name is Marie Stewart-Lewin, and I welcome the opportunity to chair this, the 12th renewal of the Jamaica National Group's Outlook for the Future series here in the Big Apple, New York. This is the final meeting in the 2018 series, which kicked off in Birmingham and London in mid-June. This past Tuesday, the team, led by the Honorable Oliver Clark, Mr. Jarrett, and the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, were in Toronto for the third meeting. And this evening, we will bring the curtains down on what has been a most engaging and robust series of discussions on the theme for this year, arresting crime and violence, and national priority for Jamaica. Therefore, it is my pleasure to guide you through this evening's discussion. Since the former Jamaica National Building Society established the Outlook for the Future series in 2003, we have been privileged to hear from a distinguished roster of speakers, including prospective prime ministers, ministers of government, heads of government agencies, public sector and private sector leaders. Over the years, we've welcomed the timely content of their presentations, as Jamaica National has always sought to keep members of the Jamaican diaspora informed about economic, development, and social trends in our homeland. In this, the 15-year history of Outlook for the series, this has been guided in large measure by Mr. Earl Jarrett as our Chief Executive Officer, who has consistently provided an edifying context in which we can hold this frank discourse about what is happening in Jamaica. One of the objectives of this forum is to ensure that Jamaicans like you who live overseas are aware of what strategies are being formulated and implemented to deal with critical issues in our country. Therefore, this evening, we're here with you in New York to continue this dialogue, and we invite your active, and I repeat, active participation. And so I say thank you so much for being here. So to get things started on the right note, I invite Bishop Cecil Riley of the Freedom Hall Church of God to pray for us, and as we seek God's guidance through this evening's discourse. Bishop Riley.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bassett Bryan would always teach me that before I pray, I should receive an offering. But my Consul General said I should wait until the end of the service. So Lord, here we come another day that thou hast made. We have come to rejoice and to be glad in it. Thank you for another day's journey. Thank you for your being with us as you promised you would be. We are asking your blessing on this evening's proceedings. Lord, we ask that you bless everything that will be said, everything that will be done. Grant that it will indeed be to the honor and to the glory of your precious name. We thank you for the leadership that you have provided for us. And we ask, oh God, a very special blessing on our commissioner. We ask that you'll always remind him that he has come to this place for such a time as this. And to remind him that when the righteous rule, the people will rejoice. Bless whatever we'll do, oh God, and pray that at the end we will have a benediction. It was indeed good for us to be here. Bless our land, Jamaica, we pray. We are leaving everything into your hands. And in agreement we say amen. Amen. And amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Bishop Riley. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite the Honorable Oliver Clark to deliver the official welcome. Mr. Clark is known to many persons in our audience, having been former chairman of the Jamaica National Building Society and now chairman of the Jamaica National Group, given our transition in December 2016 from the Building Society to the Jamaica National Group. In addition, Mr. Clark is chairman of the RGR Galena Communications Group, and he is the recipient of numerous awards. He holds the 4th highest honor in Jamaica, which is the Order of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the chairman of the Jamaica National Group.
Good Good evening, everybody. Whenever I hear all this about OJs, I remember I went to South Africa and went to visit Bishop Tutu's office, and they made me wait a long time. And then a fella came out. He said, "You're from Jamaica?" He said, "I have something I really want to ask somebody from Jamaica." "Oh, happy to help." And he said, "Well, the bishop went there and he came back with something called an OJ. And I really want to know what it is. We think it's called the Order of Jesus, you know." The world needs clarification. Bishop, I'm not attempting to rival you. My job is to welcome you and to say that what Jamaica National aspires to do is to do more than provide financial services, but also to build Jamaica and be a strong and positive friend, particularly of Jamaicans in the diaspora. We want to provide you with a better service, and we want to provide something more than other financial institutions. During the last year, we changed the nature of our corporation from being a billing society to being a bank, so we can provide additional services to our customers. And in the hope that he will perform, we have a new boss of the bank. Would you please stand, Curtis? No. His name was still standing. And his job is to provide a superior service to you. So look at him. If you don't get superior service, Curtis Martin, write down his name. Go and hassle him. Okay? So are you ready for that? Yes, well, thank you very much, Curtis. All right. The last thing to do is that Jamaica National, as part of its service to the diaspora, has been doing extensive research as to where the most intelligent members in the diaspora live. So we've looked everywhere. And Curtis, please stand. And Curtis has advised me of extensive research. The most intelligent and the most genuine and the nicest members of the diaspora live in New York. You may not get the other things right, but you got that right. So thank you for coming. That's our aim. We are mutually owned, so as you know, you own us, and it's really nice of you all to come here. And Jamaica has is at a really critical point. This crime business has been going on for too long. Every few weeks we appoint a new commissioner. It still goes on. But this one I think is going to stay for some time. But I think after he goes in another 7 or 10 years, that we need a woman to run the force. Okay. So, would you please stand? Now, there is a very democratic process to appoint a commissioner. Of course, this is a long way away, but she's pretty good. All right? So, but what I'm saying is that I think that the new commissioner is really bright. He's had a lot of experience of marching up and down the place in the morning. He has a very good mind, an analytical mind, and there's a chance now that he can get the crime under control. So I think what our job is, and what your job is back the guy, all right? And try and make the transformation that are needed. So this guy is probably the best fellow that we'll have as commissioner for a long, long time. And we need to encourage him to perform. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clark. Commissioner, Mr. Clark has certainly put the spotlight firmly and squarely on you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have in your midst someone who is the representative for the government of Jamaica here in New York in the person of our Consul General. And so at this time, I would like to invite Ms. Trudy Deans to bring greetings. She has been pursuing an active role among the Jamaicans and other Caribbean people here in New York since her appointment in 2016. Historically, I understand, and congratulations, Ms. Deans, she is, while she's the 10th Jamaican Consul General to New York City, she is the youngest female to be named to this post. And only the 4th woman to occupy this position. She previously served as the Community Relations Officer at the Jamaican Consulate in New York for 2 years. Ms. Deans, we do thank you so much for taking the time to participate in our Outlook for the Future Forum this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Deans.
Curtis, remind me to work on the keys for the city, can you? Thank you, Mistress of Ceremonies. Ambassador Dr. Basil Bryan, but known to many of you as Dr. B. Welcome, Dr. B. Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, Mr. Earl Jarrett, Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica National Group, the Honorable Oliver Clark, not Order of Jesus, but Order of Jamaica, Chairman of the Cleaner Company, and many other companies. Executives of Jamaica National and the Cleaner Company, respectively. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the audience, my fellow Jamaicans, friends of Jamaica, my staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The Consulate General of Jamaica, New York, has a responsibility for the largest mission of the Jamaican Foreign Service, and by that I mean in terms of where our Jamaicans are located. Our representation of the Jamaican diaspora covers a jurisdiction of 33 states, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. It is always a pleasure and an honor for me to address any audience where Jamaicans are gathered. This forum is even more important as it seeks to address an area of concern, a question I'm often asked: what are we doing about the crime in Jamaica? Crime is now the primary public safety issue for our country, and if not contained, pose a significant threat to the country's human and economic development. The government has instituted, in an effort to address this, the government has instituted state of emergencies, which has resulted in a reduction in murders. Major fines have been made in confiscating illegal firearms, and several wanted people have been detained. In addition to this, social intervention measures has also been employed. The government looks to its diaspora for their input and suggestions in ways in which to stem the surge in crime. After all, Jamaica is home to Jamaicans, wherever they may be. Jamaica depends on our nationals, or our government depends on our nationals overseas to assist in its development. As such, among my objectives as Consul General is to build partnerships and to engage Jamaicans and our fellow West Indian family within diaspora who are unattached and not associated with any organization, as well as to re-engage those who no longer participate, with the hope of building sustainable partnerships. The seventh objective of the Economic Growth Council's agenda is harnessing the power of the diaspora, which speaks to ensuring that the powerful reservoir of capital, skills, relationships, and expertise be properly and strategically utilized, using other successful countries as a benchmark to achieve economic growth and social development. Assisting our country to address this disease that has plagued our island for far too long is one such way. The government of Jamaica, or I should say our government, has a responsibility to implement policies ensuring peace and security for all. Our responsibility as citizens is to assist our government in achieving the same. There is no easy fix for crime. A collective approach is required. It is my hope, ladies and gentlemen, that upon leaving here this evening, or in asking the first question, we ask, what can I do to help my country address this issue? That's what happened when I have too many papers up there. In closing, I would like to commend Jamaica National for hosting this forum, as well as to provide a platform for members of the Jamaican diaspora to put forward suggestions to arresting crime and violence as a national priority for Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. One love. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Consul General. You know, it is always important that we have the leadership and those who believe in us as groups, and to ensure that we keep the connection very strong with home. And so I'm sure that's a role that the consulate provides. Before we get to the next speaker, I just want to see how many persons have a little yellow ticket, a little white ticket in hand. Let me ask the other. Mr. Clark? You'd like one? Okay. Let me rephrase it the other way. How many persons do not have a little white ticket in hand? May I see your hand? Okay then. All right. Let me rephrase it a third way, except for those in the front row. How many persons do not have a little white ticket in hand? Okay, all right, so now we're getting there. May I invite those of you who don't, that before the evening ends, that you secure yourself that little white ticket. And I'll tell you why. It's that someone here this evening have an opportunity, a big opportunity, to win a round trip for 2 economy class to Jamaica, and a 3-night stay at an all-inclusive hotel. If you don't have a ticket, you don't stand a chance. Yeah? I'm sorry, my front row folks, yes, there are a few exceptions to the rule. and Mr. Clark, the exception applies to you too. So I encourage you, if you do not yet have your ticket, to ensure that you get your ticket before the end of the evening. We can talk about that. At this time, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce my boss, Mr. Earl Jarrett, the Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica National Group. He is no stranger to our JN members and the Jamaican diaspora. You see how he's on the edge of his seat. So he's telling me, Mommy, move it on. But Mr. Jarrett has been very instrumental in the formation and the continuity of the Outlook for the Future series. And he is well aware of the importance of keeping that connection between Jamaicans who live overseas, who have chosen to live outside for whatever reason, and keeping that strong link with home. And the Outlook for the Future series provides such an avenue for that. And so at this time, sir, I invite you to bring your remarks to the audience.
Thank you, Mrs. Louis, Chair of this evening's function. Ms. Shirley Dean, Consul General for Jamaica in New York. Major General Anthony Anderson, Commissioner of Police, Jamaica Constabulary Force. Honorable Oliver Clark, Chairman of Jamaica National Group. Mrs. Sheila Alexander, Mr. Derek Cox, Mr. Alfred Sims, all directors of J Money Services Limited, Senior Superintendent Karina Hood, Staff Officer Jamaica Constabulary Force, Mr. Alan Lewis, Managing Director of J Fund Managers Limited, Mr. Curtis Martin, Managing Director of J Bank, Mr. Horace Hines, General Manager of J Money Services Limited, all here present. Mr. Harry Bura Singh, from Northeast Regional Manager for J Money Services Limited, and Mrs. Janice McIntosh, Chief Representative Officer, J Bank in Florida, other members of the JMT, members of the media, other specially invited guests. I'd like to particularly welcome Ambassador Dr. Basil Bryan, well-loved and former Consul General here in New York. And Professor Donald Bottle, former Director of JM Money Services. Special welcome to you all. I just wish to, before starting to welcome you formally, I wish to remind the Chairman Oliver that the meeting is being broadcast to all the diaspora markets. So the survey done by Curtis is all over. And God bless you. We're talking about all of Jesus. Thank you all for joining us this evening for annual Outlook for the Future series meetings. As we continue to engage you, our members, in the Jamaican community outside of the Jamaicans. As you have been told, the event has been staged since 2003 and has included many Jamaican aspiring leaders and leaders who have been able to interact with the Jamaican diaspora. Many Jamaicans like you who live outside of, who live overseas, have a strong interest in welfare in Jamaica. Like you, they remain committed to our country. And I should tell you that the Caribbean Policy Research Institute did a study on the value of the Jamaican diaspora. And they have concluded, based on the research done, that the diaspora contributes roughly 34% of the GDP of Jamaica in the form of remittances, tourism, and investments and construction. And therefore, they are the single largest contributor to the Jamaican economy. And as such, maybe you should ask for your own Ministry of Diaspora. We know that the 34% could be increased if we were to deal with the levels of crime and violence in Jamaica. And that is what we intend to address this evening. The problem of crime and violence has been a pervasive one, which has grown significantly over a decade, but more so over the past 2 decades. As we look at the harsh realities of crime and violence in Jamaica, we also need to examine measures being implemented to eradicate this blight in our country, which seriously hampers our citizens and safety, not just for the Jamaicans, but also for the friends of Jamaicans, your neighbors in this country, who as well would like to develop a closer relationship with Jamaica, but are sometimes afraid to. And so we intend and we hope to address it. Mr. Clark and his expectations for General Anthony Anderson. I share that expectation. And tonight you will hear how he plans to address the major concerns of crime, highlight anti-crime initiatives, mention programs to ensure citizens and visitors are safe, and outline strategies to reduce corruption within the police force and to build the public trust and confidence of our police. I think we have a good man in the job, and I pledge my support, and I trust you will too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jarrett, and I am sure that by your presence this evening, you are also pledging your support because of the interest that you're showing in the topic and your presence here, that you too are also interested in ensuring that we have a resolution and we have some solutions to the challenges that face us in Jamaica. I am proud to introduce our keynote speaker, someone who we know, we not only believe, but we know is uniquely qualified to initiate dialogue on this topic. He's a Calabar High School alumni. I didn't know females went to Calabar, but I'm one too. I'm a Calabar girl. Oh, yes, the commissioner and I had that little discussion. Oh, yes, I am. The commissioner, he was appointed Commissioner of Police for the Jamaica Constabulary Force in March of this year, after serving as the first Jamaica National Security Advisor for approximately 1 year. Previously, he was Chief of Defense Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force, and he had a distinguished military career from 1984. Major General Anthony Anderson has been a guest presenter and panelist at many international events, including the UN Inter-Regional Crime and Justice Research Institute, at Interpol headquarters in France, and the Organization of American States Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism. Recently, he was inducted into the International Hall of Fame of the U.S. Command and General Staff College. The holder of a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in defense administration from Cranfield University in the UK, he is a former chairman of the Firearm Licensing Authority and serves on the boards of the Jamaica Fire Brigade and Heart Trust NTA. Ladies and gentlemen, the time for which you have come, the person who you've come to hear, that time is now. I invite you to stand as we give the High Commissioner a warm, warm welcome to Jamaica.
Please. I'd never wanted to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, is this mic on? All right, okay, I'm sorry. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I think we've been through all the protocols before, and I know there are going to be a lot of questions at the end of my presentation, so let's leave as much time as possible. So what we're going to do this evening is have a dialogue. In the first instance, I'm going to do a small presentation covering some of the areas and some of the things we're doing to deal with crime and violence, but also some of the things we're doing nationally to deal with Jamaica on a whole and making it a secure country. And that obviously extends beyond actual crime and violence and extends into other areas of security and things that ensure that our citizens and visitors and investors are safe and the country secure. It extends to the extent of our exclusive economic zone, 200 miles to the south of Jamaica, and even beyond that. But that is our defined geographic space. Our maritime space being 25 times the size of our land space. And out there, of course, is the whole blue economy, an aspect of Jamaica which we have hardly tapped into in any serious way, but it's something that would have to be tapped into in a responsible way. And other people are actually exploiting some of these resources in the blue economy simply because we don't have awareness and control over all of our space. So there's an overarching business of security that I'm going to spend a little time speaking about, and then narrow it down to the specifics of crime and violence, which is what this is about. But, you know, crime and violence, yes, but also peace and security. You know, sometimes we have to change our language to change our minds and follow a specific path. So, very quickly, this is some of our background. And, you know, we have lost over time, and there are many studies, significant amounts of our GDP and significant amounts of our growth potential because of crime, violence, and corruption. We've had years of flat growth, decades of it, and of course, that kind of environment disincentivizes significant investment and also has eroded the sense of confidence and public safety that is required to provide that fertile ground for people to invest and, you know, be interested in putting their money there, especially persons who are not emotionally attached to the country. So the 34% of GDP that the study said that came from the diaspora is, in one sense, a great reflection on our diaspora's interest in the country. But if it's that large a portion of our GDP, then what happens to the other areas? Why are they only providing that amount of our GDP? So these are some of the things that we have to contemplate and think about as we look at the cost of insecurity. Again, there's some things here that are probably no secret, but there's some key points here. One, that we have excelled that much in something that is not good, that the very tight geographic areas in which significant violence takes place means that we have a part of our population that is constantly being exposed to violence. It also means that there are large parts of Jamaica where it's not experienced, or not experienced in any quantity above what you'd find in any city or place around the world. We have a gun problem, that's clear from this. And the gun problem is really a border security problem because we don't manufacture guns. So they have to come from somewhere. They all come from outside through either informal ports or formal ports. So whatever strategy we come up with has to address our borders and the security of that. Again, 82%, from 81 to 82%, done with guns. The nature of guns is that it allows almost anyone to pull a trigger once they have it. And they've become far more accessible, far less controlled. It used to be a situation where probably gang leaders controlled guns, they gave them out to people, they determined how and who they were used on, etc. That has changed. And that's why you're seeing so much of it. But the point of the matter is, you have to get them when they're together. You have to get them when they're on their way in, and when they're trying to get them in. So the other area, of course, which is what affects most of our population in Jamaica, is just a sense of order, sense of rule of law, and how people go about conducting business, whether it's traffic issues, vending issues, how we deal with public transportation and transportation centers, and of course there's the acquisitory crimes. But what people are concerned with, largely what comes back is this, a sense of an abandonment by a number of, large part of our population of rule of law, which matters. The rule of law matters in all of these other things we're trying to do, whether it's economic growth, whether it's development, or whatever we wish to achieve. The other one is the corruption in the public sector, and I'm saying that broadly, and obviously the police force is a part of that, and we have our own issues with corruption that we've had for a while, and something that we have to address head on and deal with it if we're going to get better outcomes in terms of crime and violence. So this and all the matter of security, I think here's where I'll just go into some of the big picture stuff. So with this clear understanding that insecurity, crime and violence has an economic effect, it really, and especially on growth, then it means that the spend on security now becomes an investment rather than an expense, because there's a direct correlation and a return on investment that you make in this area, an economic return. There's also a growth return that you get from investing in this way. So this has led to the idea that security requires all of government responses. And anything that requires all of government responses requires ministries that are outside of national security to come on board with the programs, the sequencing of the activities in order to give better security outcomes. And I think it has been recognized that in order to get an all-of-government approach, it has to be led centrally. So the Prime Minister in Cabinet has to lead the all-of-government approach to give us better security outcomes. And that's what led to the Office of the National Security Advisor being established and a National Security Advisor appointed. It led to the security benchmarks being placed in an IMF agreement. This is a first for the IMF and a first for Jamaica to have security benchmarks around one of these agreements. But even the IMF has appreciated the necessity for doing this and for making that association. So, from the big picture, the whole plan to secure Jamaica has crime and justice related areas. Then you're looking at how we respond in major crises, what's happening in the cyber world, how we deal with economic security, and of course our critical infrastructure. Now, this is a broad and overarching plan to create a safer country. Crime works like a drought or a famine. It saps the energy from the economy, it it stops people from functioning normally, but it does it slowly. And it eats away at you for a long time. There are other threats, one being terrorism, that overnight you can recast all of your economic figures, you can start doing the maths, because everything will change. We have to prepare for that and all other things. So if we see a threat somewhere in the world happening, there's no reason to believe that at some point or one day it can't come to Jamaica. So it is incumbent on us to create a security apparatus that can meet our current problems, but also our future ones, or over the horizon ones. As a matter of fact, if we can make our own architecture robust enough, then maybe they'll divert to other places. Below that, of course, that overall national response, there's the 5-pillar strategy. I think it was last year we were here. I was wearing a different hat with Minister Montague and the then Commissioner of Police talking about this strategy and how important it is to follow these in order to get changes with respect to crime and violence. Obviously, effective policing is part of it, how our justice system works, how we construct and build communities to make them resilient and resistant to crime and violence, how we use social development as a means of getting people to divert from crime. There's something I've been speaking about as I've moved around, and that is the distinction between those people who are in the business of crime and those people on the periphery of crime. So those people on the periphery of crime tend to respond very well to interventions other than law enforcement interventions. If opportunity increases, they will do that. If they get an opportunity, whether it's a work opportunity, an opportunity to see, do, go, they will do that. And you see it reflected for somebody like me who spent a lot of time in this security business, 3.5 decades really. You've seen it in communities. There's work or there's some other intervention, there's opportunity, in fact, crime is dropping.
Yes.
Right. Now, when you don't have the intervention, it means that you're burning law enforcement capacity to deal with the periphery of crime. That's not the best use of it. The best use of it is to go after the people who are in the business of crime, that it doesn't really matter what is going on, that's their business, it's their core business. And use other methods to deal with the periphery and get those people into other useful opportunities, useful endeavors. The other one, of course, number 5, which is the reduced reoffending, is critical. The figures I've got, roughly 3 years is our turnaround time for people in prison, average time, 3 years. Now, what that means is we have 3 years when we have these people's undivided attention. And we can do with that 3 years as we choose. We can either, because they're going to spend 3 years learning, one way or another. They'll either learn from other persons incarcerated also, or they'll have opportunities to learn other things, get skills, so that they only come into the system once and they move on to more productive things. Or we can take an approach that we just lock them up and spend as little and have as little interest in them as possible, and they will return as a revolving door. So we have to deal with this reoffending matter, and it's one of the pillars on it, and there's been significant work to, in the Department of Correctional Services to deal with this reoffending matter. As I had said earlier, securing our borders is a significant part of what we do in order to stop guns and ammunition from coming in the country. Guns and ammunition come in the country on networks. Networks operate like pipelines. So they can carry guns, they can carry ammunition, they can carry drugs, they can carry people, they can carry illicit goods. They're networks, that's all they are. People facilitate the movement, whether it's through formal ports or through our informal ports. We have 145 informal ports in Jamaica. And as you say, our maritime space is huge. So what we have done is invest in technologies a number of them should be rolled out by the end of the year, so that we'll be able to see what comes through our maritime space. And we've also invested in technologies to respond and intercept those things coming through our space. That will have a market effect on what comes through our informal ports. The formal ports are more controlled, and so there are also some technologies being looked at in that regard, in terms of our scanning and secondary screening and remote screening, etc. A number of technologies in doing that. So whether it's informal or formal ports, we're investing in it to get some better outcomes in that regard. We've also legislatively changed the Firearms Act to bring it in line and consistent with the problem that we're seeing. So there are offences under the new Act that should be passed that didn't exist under the old Act. Like, distributing firearms. There's no offense like that. Even trafficking in firearms required a cross. There's no offense called trafficking in firearms under existing legislation, which sounds strange considering we have such a large firearms problem. So if somebody's caught with, 200 guns, is 200 counts of simple possession, which is actually less than if you do one hold-up with one gun. So it's really just how you recast your legislation to match your issues. Then, as it was mentioned earlier, and we have the zone of special operation legislation, and I'm not going to go that much, although there may be some questions about it, but what the zones of special operation legislation does is it ties social intervention with security operation, legislatively ties it. And I think it's pretty unique in that regard. Most legislation either deals with one or the other. I think it's a recognition that neither by themselves will work that has caused that legislation. So the zones of special operation is really an incubator for this methodology, that this legislation can work, that you actually secure a community to the point where the community secures itself. That is it, that the community can now provide its own leadership and security and live normally. The use of a state of emergency in a limited geographic way is another tool that has been used. I think the figures change daily, I think it is. So if I'm out by 1 or 2, don't hold me to it, but we are at about 107 less murders in St. James than last year. That's a lot. And so, we have to use these short-term measures to interrupt violence. If you don't interrupt violence, it feeds on itself and creates its own violence. So the biggest predictor of violence is previous acts of violence, period. It doesn't operate like crime. And I've been making that point as I go around. Crime and violence do not operate the same way, and therefore the measures to deal with them are different. Crime is largely done for a benefit, quite often an economic benefit, and that's why there's a number of things that can divert persons from crime. Violence tends to be because of previous violence, and so you can't use violence to stop violence, unfortunately or fortunately. But you can't. Because the thing about it is, it doesn't really matter where the violence came from and how justified it is. It will create additional violence anyway. So even as you may have to use it, you have to use it in such a judicious way that you understand that if you don't, then you're creating your own problem, not solving it. So that is what we've seen. We've seen reprisal upon reprisal. We've seen response upon response. We've seen the state use violence, and the next year the violence increases. When you think that the bad guys are now gone, that's not the case. Next year you'll have twice that amount. So how do you, and so this presents a challenge to law enforcement, of course, because how do you therefore respond when people are very violent without violence? Well, there's a difference between violence and force. You can have high levels of force, which generally leads to low levels of violence. Force differentials create less opportunity for violence. I'm not going to go any further into that, but it's something to think about. But the understanding between crime, violence, and force is fundamental to getting solutions to reduce violence, reduce crime, and a safer society. Again, under the public order, public safety, the thing that's bothering a lot of our people at home, as you can see, there's Road Traffic Act restructuring. We're doing some restructuring and changing some formations as we speak. How we deploy, and then of course Jamaica I, which is the camera system that's being rolled out in various places in Jamaica, hopefully eventually all over, that will allow us to track, monitor, not dissimilar to what is done here in New York. It also allows for private cameras to be attached to it, so we can actually, if you wish, allow us to see your outward-facing cameras if you're covering a public space. So that is being rolled out as we speak. We have one monitoring center now. We have a second one going up in our 119 center in the next few months. On the corruption, big one that we have to deal with. So the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, MOCA, the act was finally went through its last stage through the lower house on Tuesday last. So now, if the Governor General has signed it, it's now an independent agency, independent of the constabulary force. It deals with, of course, major organized crime and high-level anti-corruption. So it's the second law enforcement agency in the country. The other one is, as I say, how we deal with the Integrity Commission and that bringing together the various offices that deal with that, and then how operationally, or that's operationalized through collaboration between various agencies. Clearly within the police force, there's another aspect to that. We're doing a number of things to deal with this. One is we're creating a portal that we can receive complaints and commendations from the public. So if you have something, we'll send it through a portal so we can track all of those complaints. We know where they're coming from, how they're associated with specific individuals, so that we are in a position to use data rather than anecdote on dealing with this kind of corruption. Okay, straight into the current crime reduction strategy we're pursuing. Obviously, the first one is intelligence, critical component of it, and we're using a number of tools, getting new technologies to deal with intelligence, and of course there's a training component and utilization of all sources. There are many sources of intelligence nowadays that never used to exist. But we can't abandon the old ones either, which is really just human intelligence, people saying what they know. The second one is investigations. We have, in the constabulary force, emphasized operations for a long time. We need to be emphasizing our investigations and strengthening this capacity, getting better files to the courts. So this is a target area, it's an area of focus for us. We need to ground our investigations in science rather than eyewitness statements, and we're building out forensics to do that. The forensics lab is going to be independent of us. It's moving in that direction. I think it already is. We still have officers there, but the forensic side of the constabulary force will continue to be built to provide, to go for the science to support our cases and our investigations. Operations, the third one. How we do this, all of these issues, I speak about some of them earlier. This is how this is our community policing strategies, our public order, road safety, all of those strategies. Intervention, critical component, sometimes not as well liked by some of our members. Intervention, it has to become a part of any crime reduction strategy we do, must have an intervention strategy along with it, as part of it rather, not along with it, but internal to it. And there are a number of community-based programs that we're now involved in, but it has, the interest of it has depended on the divisional commander, the commanding officer, what they're interested in. What we're outlining is the strategy that you're required as a commander to follow. You need to look at all of these areas equally, the fifth one being information, and how we communicate with our communities and our stakeholders. So the 5 elements: intelligence, investigation, operations, intervention, and information. And once we pursue these, and what we found is in divisions where 1 or 2 of them are missing, we get worse outcomes. When they start to build up those 2 areas, when those divisional commanders that are not getting good results are called into the executive meeting, and they have to go through their plans and how they're going to deal with crime within their division, and we assist them to build out their overall strategy. They go to this, and then you start to see it starting to trend down. For 2 reasons. One, they're accountable. They're called in. If you're having high levels of crime and violence in your division, you'll be called in. We need to know why, and we need to assist you if you can. If you need additional resources, we'll see if we can allocate it, and if that is the problem. But these 5 things must be in whatever plan you are prepared. Right. So we have this, efficiency through technology. There are a number of internal things within the JCF that we have to do to make our officers' lives easier. How do we get the officer at the front line to be able to be more effective and efficient when he attends a scene, when you walk into a station? What is at his fingertips? What information can he access? These are some of the things that are being rolled out now. How do we capture information so that it's not written down in St. James, but next door in Trelawney they have no idea what just happened? So we're making that investment for connectivity, for a system that can carry data and information so that it's easier for the officer. And probably most importantly, we're emphasizing the value, necessity. We want the quality at the front end, at the part of the force that is going to interact with our population. That's where our emphasis has to be. That's the work we have to do to not so much be as concerned budget-wise and otherwise with what our top end is doing, but what's happening there. How do we support these guys? We want and girls to go out and do the best job possible, so that they have the pride that stops you from being corrupt. Because it's a pride issue. It's a values issue. Once you're paying somebody a living wage, then, and even if you're not, it's a pride issue. It's a values issue. You know, some people are not corruptible. Or police officers shouldn't be. Because we've signed up to serve. So it's a good thing. The truth is, if you abandon them and leave people to their own devices and don't provide them with the leadership they need, if they don't think that you're interested in them, in their health, in their well-being, in their issues and their problems, then they will divert and do all sorts of things. So we have to get our people closer to us, our leadership closer to our men and women. We can't abandon our responsibilities to the Federation to do that. We have to do it and let the Federation support the leadership in getting things done. So specifically, because I'm speaking to the diaspora, out of the first meetings that we had in England, the issue came up about some of the security concerns around returning residents. Since then, as soon as I got back in from the UK, the mechanism for this to be put in place was there, as you see up there. So there'll be a specific person within a division who will be the liaison person with the returning residents. And diaspora, there'll be a diaspora specific liaison person at my headquarters. But for returning residents in the country, as a point of contact in each division. It will allow for persons who wish to be able to register where they live, etc., register with us to say, I'm here, I've returned, I'm living here. It allows our officers to pass by every now and again just to check on them, check on you. If you're, especially persons who are returned, who are older, and perhaps don't have the level of familial support that they thought they would, we can fill some of that gaps through this person. What we've seen, especially on some of the violence perpetrated against returnees, it has been by people they know or people that they've employed.
Yep.
We're less able to deal with the people they know, but certainly around the people they employ, we can do some a facility of background checks on that. As I say, once you're registered, once we're talking, then if you have those concerns, we have facilities that we can do that. The other one, that safety and security handbook, is being developed as we speak. Will be out in another, probably month or so. And it will be on our website, so it will be able to be accessed online. So that's specific to returning residents. We know, obviously, that the best way of securing returning residents is to secure the country. Make a safe country. And what is a safe country? It's a series of safe communities connected by safe routes with a safe border. That's it. So when you break it down like that, the work is clear, what you need to do. So, as I said, this was going to be a dialogue, and it's been a monologue so far. So, let me, I think we can just move on to the question and answer and discussion part of this. Thank you for your attention.
Alright, so we're going to move very quickly into the question and answer segment, but I'd like to establish on that. No. Do I have your agreement on that? Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner.
many people, how many minutes? If you have a certain amount of time.
Commissioner, I am Bruce Barkley, former member of the JDF. Served in many capacities and to include military intelligence, was a foundation member of the military intelligence. I have been wanting to return to Jamaica to help fight this beast. I took home a CCTV camera for one of the properties I have in Jamaica, in Vineyard Town and in Montego Bay, where I was trying to do an Airbnb. They broke into it, I couldn't send the visitors down, and in Vineyard Town, the CCTV duty was exorbitant. Can something be done to waive the duty for returning residents or those persons wanting to take CCTV down to connect to the Jamaica Eye program to waive that duty? My second question is, and I speak to all of us here tonight, my questions are really many, and I'm hoping if I could see you sometime in Jamaica over the period 5th to 12th August, because we'll be here all night, and I don't want to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, I have something which I found in my community. I came from Washington, D.C. It says, we support our police. They put their lives on the line every day for us. I'm going to circulate this because we have failed our police force. We as Jamaicans have failed our police force. This commissioner, I know him, and I know him very, very well, is the best person to lead the Jamaica Constabulary Force to the transformation, and I'm calling on all Jamaicans at home and abroad to support this man so we can succeed. Failure is not an option. We will win this fight. Please circulate. The question is, today, will you accept a proposal for every Jamaican overseas to give $10 per annum to a Jamaica Diaspora Police Fund? I have $50 for my family, which I'm going to give to you tonight. To start this fund, I estimate it will be $30 million to the police force to deal with the programs. So will you accept my check for $50 and all of you dig deep into your pockets and sign a check into that fund managed by Jamaica National? Will you accept that, sir?
Where you can make similar donations, and we just simply need to put up the police as a recipient.
Thank you, sir. I end my question by saying, Commissioner, I have a presentation for you and Mr. Jarrett afterwards.
All right.
Hi, good night, everyone. My name is Shannon Shaw, Jamaican Immaculate Grad. I have an idea for that $30 million, by the way. Victim support and trauma support services is an integral part of the cure violence model that treats violence like a public health issue. Does the Minister of Security and the Minister of Health have any such violence prevention programs in place? And if not, are there any plans to implement such?
Yes, there is. It's not as robust as it could be, but that victim support and trauma support is really what interrupts the next iteration of violence. As you say, when you have a violent act, you're going to have another one afterwards, unless something comes in the way. So the Violence Prevention Alliance used to do a lot of that work, and they used to do a lot of monitoring and tracking, they still do, in the hospitals, so that as soon as an act occurs and people get to hospital, a violence interrupter interacts there. There's also interventions directly with the families, and quite often we use our chaplains to do that as well. So it is, but it's not as like many programs. They're not as robust as they could be, but we have probably 3,000 shootings a year, and that really absorbs a lot of that type of thing. That's just shootings, about chops and all of that. So yes, it is, and it's recognized, so thanks for that intervention.
I used to work with the Jamaica Defense Force Telecom Department and also Erie. I want to first invite you, maybe one day, I'm working on this surveillance technology, motorized surveillance technology, where I'm planning to do a presentation. I'm planning to do a presentation at the Navy Postgraduate School in Mitchell, California, and also I was trying to arrange to do a presentation at the Jamaica Embassy. My question to you, is there any law or clause in the Constitution which prevent the monitoring of any Jamaican, for instance, because my system will work on just like we have a telecom or telephone wire and a light post. My system will work having a truck on the light post with a camera capable of moving anywhere at any time, any day. So is there any Constitution laws that prevent this from happening? Or do you know anything?
Well, okay, so what the Constitution, particularly the Charter of Rights, privacy is a right. Okay. What that means, and the context of it means, how it's usually interpreted is that for specific surveillance of any sort, you need a body to determine that it is necessary for an overall public good.
Well, definitely.
So there is room for it. Obviously, there's room for cameras for surveillance and all of that. When you start to go down to the individual and how you use imagery and what you do with what you've collected, those are subject to constitutional oversight, and in some specific areas there's very specific legislation and processes that you have to go through to get permissions to do certain things.
Well, that's what
it doesn't mean you can't do it.
No.
And I'm saying in a public, how you deal with public spaces is different than how you invade somebody's private space.
Well, that's very critical because you're talking about a system that people have passed your house and very much. So, I'm sorry to say this, but it's already developed. I'm already working on a prototype. So, this is the reason.
But usually, what you're describing is somebody probably in a number of countries in the world, they want that. Like this when you come to America and talk about it.
Well, as I say, there is laws that can use it to determine exactly how much can be done, and more likely you could use it in terms of the maritime space, because in terms of your informal tours and so forth.
Well, what I'm saying.
But as I said, I would like to invite you one day to one of my presentations. And I said I have a presentation to do at the Navy Postgraduate School in California.
As I said, private space.
Right. Well, it's not in public spaces, so that way
I've noticed where you emphasize that police shouldn't be corrupted. Right. And you take pride in that.
No, I'm saying that.
And I'm applauding for that.
No, what I'm saying is that it is a certain value system that stops you from being corrupted, because you can't outpay corruption, because people are there years paying a day through corrupt practices.
And I'm going to get to that. 54 years ago at an institution in Jamaica. Over the years, it has grown. The institution says because of the amount in their account, I should have something called residency requirement. I took my brother and my sister name out of it, replaced it with 2 senior citizens. At the time, one was 83 years of age, the next one was 87. The 87-year-old person, they were on a fixed income of approximately US $1,000. There's a judge in Jamaica. Her adopted son claimed power of attorney. The judge of attorney gave him 97% of my money. 97% of my money, claiming power of attorney. I'm not a legal scholar, but I know power of attorney is divided after the person is dead. The judge not only do that, the judge threatened me if I write him to reopen the case, he will hold me in contempt of court. What kind of corruption is that?
Well, that's certainly not enough information for me to come. But I'm saying, do you have an attorney?
No, I don't need an attorney. Why would I need an attorney if I want to? 64 years ago.
Sir, can I recommend you get an attorney?
Why do I need an attorney? They didn't inform me to pay money to get my own money back. But I'm doing it right.
Sir, may I invite you to speak to one member of the we can treat with you and to just get some information. But certainly this is not a matter that the Commissioner will answer in this capacity.
Corruption and crime. Is that part of corruption?
But this is something that we're not able to address at this point in time. So we can talk with you after. May we have the next person, please? And do you know who is asking the question?
Good evening. See you again.
Welcome to the Diaspora's home away from the yard.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jose Riches. And, someone said something here a moment ago about the police department. I just want to say that I'm not responsible for the police being who they are. It is the responsibility of those politicians in Jamaica. I love and respect police. The decent, honest, respectable, justice-loving police. I love them. Those are who we need in our communities. We have the same problem here in the United States. It is called racial killings. In Jamaica, it is extrajudicial killings. Right? Now, you talk about swift justice. And I hope you pay careful attention to that. Because you've had an incident in Tivoli Gardens. I think this year is the 8th anniversary of the start of the massacre in Tivoli Gardens. The government says over 70-something people, only 70-something people's murdered. The people on the ground said it was more like closer to 300 people. And to this day, the people has not received any semblance of justice for the slaughter of our own people. And my question to you is that wherever we are as an African people, violence is not new to us. Deprivation and marginalization and dehumanization is not new to us. And I would think that we as a people, we have enough experience now, being under the down end of those atrocities, we will have a better understanding of how we deal with our people, how we serve our people. So I'm asking you, as a new police commissioner, the Honorable Clark, he alluded to it a moment ago, when he said, he jokingly talked about the revolving door police commissioners. And my sympathy goes out to you, because we have had many commissioners that come before you. We have brought them, have imported them from England to come to Jamaica, and they have found love and happiness in Jamaica, and we still have a crime situation in Jamaica. And you are now here coming before us as a new victim to solve the crime in Jamaica. And I mean, my sympathy goes out to you, but I know the basket to carry water, and not bottled water, water from the river. Alright? So, I'm now about corruption. We talk about corruption. I'm closing, young lady. In a moment, just 1 minute. When we talk about corruption in Jamaica, we don't talk about corruption in high places. We don't talk about the politicians who are sucking the life's blood out of the people that is creating the crime problem. You want to blame gangs and all these people about crime. But crime is a social issue, mostly that is created by politicians. And the private sector also. Your racial politicians and the private sector people who are sucking the blood from our people.
Mr. Richards, thanks for your intervention. But you know, we're going to get it done. I hear you. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done.
It is too far gone.
No. You know, the point is,
divine intervention can solve.
Yes, ma'am.
And he will do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us hear the next question, please. Thank you.
Better? Okay, so my name is Angela Weiss, and I have a question, I have a couple of statements. One of the statements is you have a huge job with your maritime space that you have attacked. In that, you have difficulty managing crime, whether it's you or someone else, is I guess there was no standard work, so it keeps being reinvented.
sorry, you lost me there.
You don't have a standard work. I know the 5 pillars, you don't have a standard work, so each time a new team comes in, there's something else that gets started over again.
Usually they're actually just iterations of a previous version, but I think you're making a point that is significant. Our strategies to deal with this matter have to be able just to be have an agreement around them that they can actually cross administration and continue along the same path. But yeah.
So the criminals that belong behind bars have the people who are law-abiding citizens with bars and grills.
Yeah.
And so they're locking themselves into their homes. And that's what the future of returning residents. Unfortunately, love Jamaica, but I'm looking forward to the time when there's grill-less, bar-less houses. Even in the worst time. So I have an issue. There's a possibility. Dreams alive and happens. Okay. Today I had a problem today. This morning, actually, someone broke into my place in Dumfries, St. James. I was calling when I got the call. I started calling. I called the Adelphi police station. I called the Freeport police station to make a complaint, and the phones weren't working. How can we help that to prevent that? This is a safety issue, and it needs to be addressed. Even though I know 119 works, but you call your local police, they come too. They come faster because they know the area. How do you manage that?
Okay, so it's working. So we will check on it to see what has happened. As a matter of fact, afterwards, I'm saying, afterwards, did you finally get somebody?
I asked the neighbor. I called.
And they got somebody?
And they went to the police station to get somebody.
Like, can you just give senior superintendent some details? But it's a specific case, so let's deal with that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Martin Richard. I understand the crime situation
situation is beyond, way beyond our needs right now. It's really out of whack right now. It's really gone.
Our violent situation.
Yes.
But it's different.
I want to know, where can you get to the meat and potato? The customs, the wharves. Who are manning those areas? I would say that, why not put the soldiers there?
We have done from that.
Right, put the soldiers there. And I figure that since the state of emergency was instituted, that should be instituted also. Because that's where the guns are coming in. Customs, the wharves. That's where the guns are coming in from. Am I right?
Well, that is, they're coming from a number of sources. That being one of them. But that's certainly not good.
Because I go to the reading, and I see on the news every day, or every morning, that customs, wharves,
we have
a problem at the wharf.
So we have 100.
So there's somebody inside that wharf is very corrupt. Right. Somebody is inside that wharf, our custom is corrupt.
Right. I don't necessarily think that putting soldiers there is the solution. I think the solution lies in the way you manage the port and intercept in the ports, on the ports. So the soldiers, we use soldiers before in a temporary way to do the ports, and it's quite effective in the short term. You find that you sit there long enough, the influences that try to corrupt will try to corrupt them also. I remember a particular case where we had soldiers at an airport. A young private was approached by somebody who was willing to pay him 10,000 US to go to the bathroom at the time of combat. That's it. Yeah. Now at the time he had probably his year late. Yeah. But he didn't go, he covered it. But after, I'm sure some of the people he told what he did said, "You're an idiot." Yeah. So, but I mean, that is his value system and probably some of the strength of the institution that stopped him from doing it. But it doesn't mean that everybody would have done it. No, I mean, ultimately, if you weren't at your post and something went through, what you'd be charged with, or what would happen is related to you being absent from your post to go to the bathroom. That would have a particular type of response. And you could justify it any way you choose. In your head, remember, the way corruption works is a very subtle thing. It doesn't start with big things. It starts with small behaviors that you start to accept. And your tolerance for the behavior increases. And then one day you look back and you realize you're way over here. You don't even know how you got there, but you're in a hole too deep to come out of. Yes.
Well, it's something I do know because, that's where most of it.
And something is being done. Thank you.
All those wires coming in.
Yeah.
Hi, good night, everybody. Please turn, all of you, please turn to your neighbor beside you and say good night and we love them. Or good evening. My name is Simon Phillips. Yes, we need some smiling here. We need some cheers. Just sitting here. We're waiting for a funeral. We're not on a funeral. We're here to ask questions.
They're sorry for the 2-week commissioners.
Okay. My question is, I have a sister. She's in the police force out there in Jamaica. And while she was home, she and her children was home. There's someone budging on them and showed at them her 2 kids. And she showed them up, and they was admitted to the hospital for 3 weeks. The next 3 weeks, they have to pay out back to work. Nothing they get, all their sick leave, they have to work back out that. They don't get no extra pay. So I want to know what is really going on.
No, so this is, what's that case? That's the, so what's the system?
I really don't want to.
Okay, I think I know the case though.
Yes.
Right. So what you're saying, she was in hospital.
Yes. And after 6 weeks, she back out there. And
she back out?
It is a job, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think they should get better protection or get more time out to
No, but
heal?
hold on. Remember, sometimes, so there are two ways of this, and you know, obviously, coming from a slightly military perspective, sometimes it's better to get back on the horse. Is that right? Instead of having a lot of time to dwell on things. So you have interventions, you have discussion, you need an outlet.
Yeah.
You don't want to be staying and just thinking and thinking and getting that loop in your head. You need to be back on the job doing things.
But I mean, question it and ask what is going on, what did they get out of it? The only thing what we get out of it, my mother was in the house and they took her out the house, take her away. As soon as they take her back, she died. We have to bury her because she was just thinking of all those wailing and gunshot and things going on. That's the only thing we get out of it.
I tell you what, I mean, because Terry and I are going to go through, we need the details, we need to know, so
okay,
we
so we'll
can
talk somebody.
see the superintendent.
Okay, and then my second question. My suggestion is, like, on the 10th era, we could have camera in those areas, like in Coronation Market, down by Tivoli and stuff, that, you know, they could see monitored by the headquarters instead of we having that special location.
Well, the cameras, we put it all the time.
Okay. All right, that's all. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't get a lovely smile from all of you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is George Ashley. I'm a resident of Washington, D.C. area. I'm also a former JDF member. I'm also a student of George Mason University and a private business owner here. Now, I endorse Colonel Bobby's suggestion about the fund. I believe that the police needs more support financially. The work does not, the pay does not reflect upon the work they have to put in. I think they need more of that, more stronger pay. I have a 3-point question. And the first is, who do you answer to?
Okay, the first, in terms of what
capacity?
The Commissioner of Police are come under the Ministry of National Security, and the Minister of National Security is there. There's also the Police Services Commission. That is another body that deals with certain aspects of what I do. And then largely, you know, there's a whole court of public opinion and that holds me to account as well.
Okay, fair enough. How much influence do these people in your office, as more specifically to the decisions you make in regards to crime and violence?
Okay, so on operational issues, except to say that obviously you pursue a policy, depends on what the policy of whatever government there is. So there are policy directions, and as long as they do not obviously conflict with the law and constitution, you're talking about emphasis and direction. So it really, so for instance, the cases you do, the investigations you do, those are unaffected by anyone outside.
Third and last question. I will just expand before I ask the question. So you put together a beautiful presentation. I've heard that there has been many others before you. And I've heard that it's also a revolving door. My first 2 questions were, I think we have to have a one-on-one for me to go into a little bit deeper with the real meat of the matter. But the third question is, what measures you have in place to oversee the people and the entities pointing out to everyone that these people and entities do not have any involvement in crime or violence and or violence.
When you say entity, what are you talking about? Internal or external? Or what?
Internal, external, and regional. In your capacity, where you are now.
What? Oh, say that again.
No, I'll ask it again. What measures are in place to oversee the persons above you or who have any influence upon your decision or your office? What measures are there, and also reassurances to everyone that these persons or entities do not have any involvement in crime or violence?
Not quite clear what you're asking me. Maybe if you be more precise, I can answer the question. If you're asking me, so people who come to who are involved in crime and violence and come to the attention of law enforcement become the subject of investigation. They first become the subject of intelligence, and then they become the subject of investigation. That's period.
However, you...
By the Police Services Commission.
You answer to the government, correct?
Huh?
You answer to the government, correct?
They're actually, like the Services Commission, they're quite independent.
Thank you so much. In the interest of us getting out of here before midnight tonight, we need to end the line at the last person. Please, can we ask that no more persons join the line? May I ask the persons who are in the line now to restrict your question to one, very brief, because we do have a time frame by which we have to get out of here. And of course, we need to draw the prize before we leave, so we need to expedite all of those. So please, may I ask you to restrict your questions to one question. We've been very, very accommodating, but we really have to wrap up for time. Yes, thank you.
President, I currently reside in Kew Gardens, Queens. First, I must express my high commendations to the JCF for their unceasing efforts to tackle crime and violence which affects our Sundridge Island. I keenly listened to your presentation and the suggestions that you made to fight crime and violence which affects Jamaica. However, my question is, despite the implementation of new technologies and strategies, how will the JCF tackle crime in terms of dealing with corruption, and will the JCF provide specialized training for officers to fight crime more effectively?
Well, so it's not really specialized training that fights crime. It's everybody's training. There are specialized areas that assist that process, like forensics, like cyber forensics, that sort of thing. And there's training, there's all ongoing training in those areas. So, yeah, I mean, was there another part to that? Sorry.
Yes, because actually I suggest this person in this room tonight, and I recently migrated from Jamaica and came here for one reason, fear of my life, because Jamaica has become a very, very dangerous place to live. And I do believe that as the new commissioner for the JCF, one thing that you can implement is collaboration with the JDF to work as one unit to tackle crime and violence more effectively. And I do believe that we have good officers, but at the same time, specialized training in that more officers need to develop interpersonal skills, how to deal with citizens.
Okay, that's fully. They do that. As a matter of fact, it's an example that's looked at elsewhere in the world.
Thank
you. My name is Janice Sylvester. I'm from Montego Bay.
Okay.
And my mom just went down. I'm very worried. because she's from Rosal, and the crime is bad out in Barrytown. Spad Valley, Gatchinall, I want to know how is it out here, because everybody's running to come here,
Right.
and it's very bad.
Yes.
So
Okay.
tell me, how is it out in Rosal?
Incidents in those halls. As I said, there's, compared to last year, we're down significantly, we're down 68% in murders in St. James since last 68%. That's a large drop. So it doesn't mean that everything's safe, but remember, there's still the third group. So, you know, and we always have to be, remember, when we get small, we can't really celebrate small victories. We don't have the time to pause. We have to be focused continuously on continuing the process and getting better outcomes. So although we're getting some good things, even nationally, it's not the sort of thing that, okay, we can now pat ourselves on the back. There are a huge number of guns out there, and people are willing to use them. We still have a lot of work to do.
All right, so I want to know, is it more up in Barrytown?
Well, I mean, a number of the gangsters from Barrytown were arrested. Some are in confrontations, but at the moment, there's not a lot happening.
Thank you. That's all my question.
Morning. My name is Harold Bailey. I go to call you addressing the serious matter of extortion. If you did misspeak, could you say something about
But I
that?
didn't address any specific crime, really, other than murder, because that's what people are most concerned with. So extortion, the focus here, because it's one of the main funding areas for criminal gangs. And so what we've been doing is pursuing them under anti-gang legislation, which allows for us to deal with associates, as well as the perpetrator of crime. Now, the thing with extortion is quite challenging to deal with if you don't have a complainant. And that's the biggest difficulty with extortion. You hear about it, you even go and ask people if it's been happening, they say no, or they won't say. Police require a complaint to deal with this. Now, I understand all the issues, the fear, etc., of coming forward, but it's very difficult for us to deal with a matter that's so personal. So they extort a business or extort a person without that person saying, yes, I was being extorted, because you can't make a case. If the person who, if you arrested the person and they said, no, but I gave them the money, that's the end of the matter. So that's one of those issues that require collaboration.
Okay, sir. Thanks for the response and good luck.
Okay.
My name is Sonia Thompson from the Church of Valley Sassy First. And first I want to make a quick comment. One of the major things is that education. And the people that is educated, starting from young, and they are given proper jobs, because it's how do people cause crime, okay? So one of my quick questions, I have a couple questions about this. What are you doing as far as the people that who is going back into prison? What are you doing to educate them and help them not to return back to prison?
I mean, while it's in prison. So this is what I mentioned earlier. So there are a number of programs to do education in prison. The Heart Trust has been engaged to assist in this process, but they're also engaged to reach the stage where they encompass the law and divert them. It's looking at moving from a few hundred people in diversionary programs to tens of thousands. That is why the program is being designed like that. That is why the 4 entities that deal with youth and how we empower young people, young being up into the mid-20s, late 20s, have been put together so that we can leverage the resources in a more efficient way. That you can walk through the door, whether even if you're completely illiterate, we can take you from there and release you at the other end with skills to get a job and do things. So that's being done in conjunction with everything else.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say back again, education and religion.
The majority, the largest for the year on year of the Jamaican budget other than debt is education. It's the biggest spend in Jamaica.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at 5 minutes after 9. We will bring this session to an end at 9:30 p.m. Therefore, for those persons who are in the line, may I once again say to you, please ask your questions. If not, then we're going to have to end the line before all persons get an opportunity to ask their questions and get them answered. So we end in 25 minutes time, so I ask you to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner, and all the officials here. My name is Carmita Alvarez. I'm a forensic social worker and a former teacher in Jamaica. And I have an organization that assists individuals who are deported to Jamaica. And I love what you have been saying regarding involving individuals from all spheres, of our society. But the marginalized population of the deported individuals, or as we say, the returning, involuntary returning residents. Yes, we try to avoid that. What I would like to know from you, you've got, the commission set up for returning residents. How are we dealing with the issue of individuals who are sent back home and are so disconnected from the larger society and sometimes forced into crime? I have a young man who was a part of, who we have been helping, who said he committed crime in order to go to general penitentiary, in order to have a meal and some place to sleep. Not that he would have wanted to commit crime, but because there is so little for them there, nothing for them there. And so this is an issue that I would like to know how you are addressing and how can we work together, because my organization is done.
So I think that second part, how do we work together? Involuntarily return persons on a range of things. Some persons who are returned are just immigration issues. Another set are those people who are on the periphery of crimes, so they did small crimes and they got caught. Then you have some hardcore people in the business of crime who've been deported more than once. Right. So each one needs a different prescription. Now, even the people who are most dangerous to us have committed no crime in Jamaica until they do. So in other words, you've returned, you've committed no crime in Jamaica. We get data where you may be and all that, but law enforcement is limited in terms of what it can do. You're not wanted. It is recognized, though, that there needs to be a program. I think some things are in place, not law enforcement, not JCF program. We do the recording and tracking, but other people do the more social side of things to try and give people a start, not almost like a halfway program, you're back. Because some of the people, not the majority, but some of them obviously have lived most of their lives abroad. When they're deported, they grow up in a different system than in Jamaica. So I say that, I mean, it's important for somebody like you with your agency to touch base with us so that we can share, you can share what we do.
But we definitely need, more support.
Well, yeah, but you see, what I'm saying is there are different categories and different types of support. All right.
Thank you. Next question, please.
I presently live in New York, and I just wanted to express my concern about something that's happened with a member of my family. My uncle was 82 years old, was a citizen of the United States. He lived here for 40 years, returned to Jamaica, built his home there, and and lived there for 8 years. Came back up in 2012 to vote for President Obama in the 2012 election. 2 days later, he returned. When he returned, he was robbed and he was killed in his house. He was tied, all 4 limbs were tied to his bedpost, and his body was mutilated. I'm giving you this scenario because from 2012 till today, his murder goes on. My question to you is, what are we doing? I know we can't always prevent crime, it's going to happen, but when we do have a crime, how are we going to resolve it? How are we going to provide justice for those crimes?
Very sorry about your loss, but we don't solve every crime, and no one does. But we have a number that we have, as a matter of fact, a lot of the more recent ones in custody within weeks, and with cases, files, and charges. So the specifics of that case, it's unusual. I say it's unusual that you actually have mutilation in Jamaica. And that's not common. And so quite often when you see these types of crimes, or somebody they know who's probably involved, or somebody who's angry at something, I'm saying this, so I can't go through it.
Well, that is
I'm saying just
that it was someone who probably knows it because we believe it was a setup, but the crime still goes unsolved.
Well, I mean, as you say, we can look and see if it's cold or there's something to the case again. Could you, as you soon could you just go over to senior superintendent, who they just give us some details, should ask you some questions and okay.
Thank you. Jamaica Ex-Police Association, Brooklyn chapter. I would like to find out if you, the 12 garrison constituencies that you have in Jamaica, controlled by both JP and PMP member of parliament, are you having any problem in taking out the guns out of these garrison constituencies? Thank you.
Yes. So the nature of things have changed slightly. So the level of control that people have politically over communities has waned a bit. It's not as strong as it used to be. And largely because persons who are committing these things are from a different generation. Criminals are from a different generation. They grew up under different circumstances. They didn't grow up in the same way where you have certain respect for this set or that set. They don't run it. They also end up with money that they get outside of any patronage, which allows them to conduct what they want to on their own steam. In terms of, as you know, in terms of era leaders down to what you want to call them, it's about the quality of the investigation and the cases. Nothing stops us from doing it. Nobody calls me to say, well, leave him alone or don't touch him. I don't get called. Never have. 35 years, never been called once. Maybe because people know the reaction.
You stopped a lot of time when I was serving. That's
Right. Doesn't happen to you. Nobody calls it.
They used to call the station.
Well, maybe call the station, I don't know. But the idea of that is unacceptable.
Yes, I believe it is a question. My name is Alfred Roberts. I am the president of the Bronx chapter of the Jamaica Ex-Police Association. So I've seen a lot of disturbing video with policemen making arrests and they're surrounded by people. And at times they have to take in the arrest because when they call for help, it's like help comes right away. Are there any plans for like a rapid response team or like a rapid response team?
Absolutely. And where the traffic is, where we're looking at some bike-based responses. We have a number of things that are going to roll out because that's the only way we're going to, you see, once you have 2 officers or 1 officer and you have 1 person and a crowd, you don't have the required force differential so that it doesn't devolve into violence. If you have 20 officers, you have no violence. The person does come.
Give me a second, sure. That's all. Chairperson for education. You mentioned about education. Education.
Okay.
In one of the ministry's white paper, I saw here, 80% of the high school students goes to 80% of the new high schools.
Go to what?
80% of the high school students in Jamaica go to new high school.
Right, those new high schools, they're all going to.
But what's in that? 80% of new high schools are failing. Right? So about 40,000 students will go to school, but I mean 25,000 students are failing. What's happening is that I see where the government are issuing diploma for graduates. You can't read. We have an code here in New York where a student was hired by one of my colleagues to pack spices in a box, food seasoning. And they have caps, full of caps. And he was putting, when you turn the caps, just to put the seasoning in the box. So when they have meat, chicken, fish, one color, you put everything in one box. You only follow that when you make the shells. Because he could read.
No, he could read, right. But we don't assume that he went through a high school system and got you have to get a number, you have to pass a number of subjects to get that. And because he had a diploma doesn't mean he earned a diploma.
So why are the schools issuing it? And what
you can probably go somewhere within a few miles of where we're standing and get a degree tomorrow.
Yes.
A piece of paper.
So he got his one paper.
No, but I'm saying it. I don't know. Okay. But more than likely, it was a high school diploma.
The ministry white paper said 80% of schools are failing. Not what's happening.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, if you end up with a high school diploma, you will be able to.
So what kind of intervention?
No, what I'm saying, so what type of intervention, remember, as you say, so the Ministry of Education is doing a suite of things to change this. They're also allowing, they're putting up programs so that people who are failing academically can be redone or move into vocational training. So there are a whole range of programs. JFLL is still alive to train people who can't read. So we need to get to the stage where we're not teaching people twice. We have to get them one time through the system and get them educated. Right, thank you.
Next question, please. Thank you so much, Mr. Bedwell.
I'm Commissioner and panelists. My name is Patrice Antoine. I am CARICOM National from Trinidad and Tobago, as are my parents. They made a decision earlier this year to retire in Jamaica. They, in fact, even had bought land. From Trinidad, yes. My father fell in love with Jamaica in his visit decades ago. That said, given the recent news of Mr. Gale and I forgot, Charlie Anderson.
Okay.
Their recent murders, including, I believe, Mr. Delroy Walker, returnees of Jamaica, who had in fact been murdered.
Okay.
They have since decided to not only withdraw all their funds, but sell their land in Jamaica, and have since decided to return and retire in Barbados. My question to you is this. Part of their concern was the privacy rules regarding protecting their funds and not having their funds or any assets in their banks in Jamaica, for instance, especially for returnees, if that information could be sold and then be used to then find where these returnees are located, to then potentially be...
So, no. We have seen no sign of that.
So are there any...
Anywhere as strong as anywhere else. Absolutely. There's no, I mean, the banking system in Jamaica is tight. It's as good as anywhere.
Because that was in fact a concern given the recent murders of Andersons. As soon as they reported their credit card information stolen, they were murdered. So again, that is something that is a concern for several returnees, including other CARICOM nationals.
Right, but remember, that sort of credit card details, you don't go through a bank for it. People generally clone cards. As a matter of fact, the incident, obviously it's under investigation. At the moment, we have people in custody for that already. The other one, we have confessions from other people. I'm saying that within weeks we have it because they're people associated and close. Right, so it's not, there's not this wholesale targeting of returning residents that people are looking to see where you have money. There's a lot of money in Jamaica anyway. I mean, that's a whole lot of money. Right, so there are a lot of money people who think the thing with a returning resident is sometimes they're not as aware of the nuance of the environment. I mean, I know Trinidad well. I did security in Trinidad. Right? I know Barbados too. There as well. So what I'm saying is that some of the concerns that we probably just, we are saying not just the JCF, but nationally we need to have more information available so that people who are making decisions don't just look at a headline and base their decision making on that.
They certainly don't want to be potentially murderers.
Well, remember,
so much.
But it happens everywhere.
Commissioner, we're doing very well. We have 10 minutes to go and we have 3 questions to go. We are going to end at 9:30, so we will take those 3 questions very, very quickly so that we can depart at 9:30. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm here to praise. Good evening. I'm here to thank and praise the Commissioner to take time off to come with Jamaica National sponsors to give us an insight into the programs and the plans that you're currently using to fight violence. I'm also here to support the gentleman who suggests that we who live here set up a fund along with Jamaica National to help the police, starting with even $10. We could start tonight if we are that serious. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening and thank you for taking the time to do it quickly. Unfortunately, you are from Redlands Road and from North Street, so we do share some things and some things we don't share.
Right, but you know,
but it's okay.
I've been noticing the last 7 years or so and watching it very closely.
That's all right. That's quite all right. Foundation is foundation. Thank you very much, and as well, thanks very much to Jamaica National, Mr. Jared. Thank you all the time, and your team. You're wonderful, and it's important to have these discussions. I just want to, just 2 pieces. 2 pieces of 1 question. You spoke earlier about, from the perspective of firefighting fire. You spoke from that perspective. You didn't go deeper into it. But in so doing, if that's what is that the direction the police is going? And I
said the opposite.
Oh, you said the opposite tonight. Okay, so I declined my question. The second part, I circle my Redlands Road. But the second part of my question is this. I think some of us, and I'm not sure how many of us share this point of view, that often when we, from in Jamaica, when we listen to certain perspectives of government, certain perspectives of the politicians, of those who drive public opinion, it seems many times that we get almost knockoff
from what we hear internationally. So if there's an issue that comes with terrorism, then there's going to be a knockoff in Jamaica of what? Thank you. And so, in so doing, I just want, there is a particular way of communicating in Jamaica, and I just wanted to just, rather than tapping into the normal means of fighting crime, could there be something specific that is a specific Jamaican solution? And to what extent are you exploring that? Thank you.
Okay, so although we find have to do Jamaican one. Two, we're looking at, as we design things like, I'll give you an example. So it's a Special Operation Act. There's no legislation like that anyway, as far as I could find or see, which ties social intervention legislatively to security operations. Doesn't exist. Jamaica has it. One example. We're creating Jamaican solutions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Turner-Wolf, and I came to the U.S. when I was 11 years old in Jamaica. I still have interest in one day returning to Jamaica when I retire.
Amen.
I had 3 kids that were born in the U.S. and took them back to Jamaica 3 years ago, and they just love Jamaica. And this is one of the reasons why I'm here today. As you mentioned before, the challenge is, what can I do to help my country? And it's a wonderful idea, definitely, having cameras in particular areas in Jamaica. I think that's commendable because they've done it in the UK, it's working, they're now doing it in the US a lot. But one thing that I do notice that's very important, because I work with a law enforcement agency here in the US, in New York, is the Jamaicans, the eyes of the people. And how do you go about protecting them when they call in? Or is it done through an online system? Is it anonymous?
Okay.
Because people are more able to
There are
information when they go
okay,
there.
now listen. So there are different ways. Yes. You can actually, there's a number of ways to share by mail. You can email it. You can call 311. You can call Crime Stop. You can download the Stay Alert application and put the information anonymously on it. There are a range of ways. Crime Stop has been used for a long time, where people pass on information, it's never been compromised, and it works. So there are a number of means to that. What we can do is, when we do the online manual, we put that in it, probably in it already, but I'm going to ensure that probably we speak more about these methods, but they're there. There are a number of ways you can anonymously give information.
Okay, I think it's very wonderful, as you mentioned, to make sure people are aware of those things.
Okay.
And also, just quickly, I just want to say, it's also, when you mentioned the value system, it's important to encourage, as you mentioned, the police officer that could have left his post and earned $10,000 US. Encourage them, like I like that. Like at my agency, you're highlighted when you do stuff like that. You are highlighted. And when you're highlighted, it goes in your portfolio and it goes towards promotions.
Yes.
And it shows your integrity, so I think that's very important also.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It is that.
With your permission, I would like to make 2 quick presentations, one to Mr. Jarrett and one to the General.
And we do have to draw the price, so we will be able to facilitate you, but let me say we have to stick by our word. We said we're going to be out of here by 9:30 and we're beyond 9:30, so let us go very quickly to the next segment. And so we will offer you the opportunity, sir, to make that presentation. It may not be formally, but we will certainly do so. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like us to, at this time, before we go to the raffle, let me just ask, is Floyd Darling here? Floyd Daring? Could you come forward for me, please, as I call your name? Michael McFarlane? Charmaine John, Carl Salmon, Howard DeCosta, Sandra Kelly. Alright, I just want to acknowledge these persons. These persons visited the JN booth, the JN Bank booth, and as a result of that, they will be given some gift certificates and some gift items. Mr. Martin, may I just ask you to just make a quick presentation to these persons? While we do that, Consul General, may I invite you to come forward? I know this is the moment for which we are waiting, and so we will ask Mademoiselle Consul General to select a ticket number. One condition that they take you. Well, I leave that for you to negotiate after the ticket is selected. Let me see all the white tickets in hand. Okay. Bear in mind that the person has to be here in order to qualify for the prize, and so it is good to see that we still have quite a few prospective winners in the audience this evening. So, the number starts with 9. It has a middle number of 7. We're getting somewhere? Yeah. Okay. The number ends with a 7. Alright, so we're doing a process of elimination. Let me see who else in the game. You start with a 9, you have a middle 7, and you end with a 7. Alright, so we're getting somewhere. Alright, so I'll go again. We have a 9, we have a 2, we have a 6, we have a 7. Let me see who, let me see. Alright, I'm coming down. So after the 7, we have a 9. Let me see who else is in the game. After that, we have a 1. Let me see who else is in the game. Alright. Okay, I give you the number 9267917. The person is gone. Alright. Consul General. Consul General, may I invite you to select someone who is. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking the Consul General to select someone who is in the room. Consul General, can you do that for us? Okay then. The person has a ticket ending 957. Is Oswald Robinson here? No. That's you? Is that? Mr. Robinson, is that you? May I see your corresponding ticket, sir? Jamaica National is a financial institution at heart, so we do a little bit of auditing to ensure that our Mr. Jack may have an extra 4 pairs of eyes to verify that I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Oswald Robinson is the winner of our trip for 2. Mr. Clark, may I invite you to make the presentation?
Mr. Commissioner, I want a picture with you. Yeah. I gotta go. I just want us to take a picture. I like neat things like this. So warm in.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Nice meeting you.
Where is Mr. Bat?
Always talk to you on the radio.
Where is he? Colonel Bat, would you come with you to make that presentation?
Let's take a picture, come.
It's inappropriate to say.
No, it's not.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate it. We do appreciate the time. I gather that there is a birthday person in the room. Happy birthday to you, ma'am. We got, well, this is more than one, but happy birthday to you. We do have members of the Ex-Commissioner Officers Association with us. Thank you so much for coming up. We really do appreciate the support. And we thank each and every one for taking the time to be with us. Thank you, and do travel safely home. Thank you again. Good night.
Where am I going?